Hollow Knight, even though it's been out for a while, is a game that I never got a chance to play, which is why I selected it for a Let's Play here on YouTube. And in the first session, we made a decent amount of progress through the beginning part of the game, and I really liked it. Really enjoyed the overall presentation and gameplay. So I've been kind of itching to get back into it, and I don't want to wait an extended amount of time and sort of forget what I learned. So depending on time availability, I may try and get a couple sessions of additional footage of Hollow Knight. That way I have a whole chunk to edit and I won't have to worry about recording for a bit. Looking on howtobeat.com for Hollow Knight, it's a fairly lengthy game. If I'm trying to get everything and not beelining and speedrunning through the game, it's probably going to be about 30-something hours, is my guess. With that being said, I want to experience a lot of that content and not have to wait. But overall, I had very good first impressions of Hollow Knight when I tried it. And I'm looking forward to getting back and doing more with it. There's still no ETA on the sequel. I'm also keeping an eye on that to see when that comes out. Maybe the timeline will align properly that it comes out by the time I beat the original and the original DLC. We'll see. It's something else that I'm tentatively planning in the long term. There are some other Let's Play type things that I'm planning on doing probably after Hollow Knight. I don't want to have multiple concurrent Let's Plays going. I'd like to focus on one major game at a time, the exception being if I end up starting Monster Hunter. A change I made beginning of this month, once the Iceborne Let's Play finished up, was the decision to not have two concurrent Let's Plays running at the same time. And the reason why I did that from a content creation standpoint is primarily because I didn't want to flood my channel with just Let's Play content. I think the exception will be if I'm doing a Monster Hunter game. I think that is fine as a secondary content source. But doing some thinking after the last year and doing pretty much daily uploads 7 days a week, which is a lot of work to edit and post and record all by myself, I thought for moving forward in 2021, it'd be a good idea to try and experiment with scaling uploads back for now, at least until I figure out what I'm doing with the Monster Hunter stuff. But instead of having 7 days a week, I'm going to be taking, or have been taking off, Wednesdays and Sundays, which were normally Monster Hunter Let's Play days, to work on other things like recording art episodes and planning content for other parts of other areas that I wanted to focus on for the channel. And I think that'll be good for now. It would be nice if I had the ability to work with an editor, and depending on how things go throughout this year, that's something I might think about. The main challenge being it'd be easier to hire an editor if I was able to monetize my YouTube content. I've talked about it a little bit before, and it's not something I really want to harp on because it's not really something I have control over, and it makes me sound sort of entitled when I mention it. But having been a content creator on YouTube for several years now, I've been uploading videos for a while. Because of the rules of monetization and partnership on YouTube and the way they are now, I am not able to monetize my content. In other words, I can't put ads on the videos unless they are copyright claimed by the original owners of the material, at which point the ads will play for other people and the money will go to the copyright holder. That isn't something I run into very often, but in the event that I do have some sort of copyrighted material, the ad revenue goes to the owner of that copyright, not me. And because I can't monetize my content on YouTube, I don't make money from any of the stuff I do on here. It's purely based out of an interest and desire to create content, which is fine. It's been a little bit frustrating over the years, especially once they changed their policy for monetization, because it means smaller creators with smaller audiences don't have the ability to make money off of their content unless they become decently popular according to YouTube standards. And so, as a result, that means I'm essentially working for free, which when it comes to the art stuff is fine, and the Let's Play stuff is really just a chance for me to play through games and talk about them. If I was doing this for a living, I think the focus of my content would be a little bit different. But depending on how things pan out, working with an editor would allow me to record more different types of content and keep the uploads frequent enough that I wouldn't have to worry about being too idle, but I'd be essentially paying for it out of my own pocket. So for now, that will not be a high priority, but we'll see. If I get the chance to talk with an editor and I feel like it would be good for the content and we're on the same page as far as style of videos, you never know. That might be something I look at in the future. But for now, I need to be able to work at a pace that I can sustain. And I was doing pretty much daily uploads for the last couple years, I want to say. And that sort of becomes tiring after a while. But we'll see. That could change. Alright, let's do a status check here. I've finished working my way through the line work. The cleanup didn't take as long as I thought, but that was probably a good 10 or 15 minutes of just deleting extra pixels. I think that will do for our starting shape here. I'm putting in some accent lines on the head. What we have based on our starting shape and the primary line work is this bipedal crystal dinosaur creature. And I think from here we're good to move on and start working on the color assignment. What we'll do is we will jump down to our color layer and start doing color assignment here. And if we're doing an ore crystal dinosaur, I'm thinking a mix of earth tones and greens might be a good place to start. I think I want to go for a set of colors on the body, and then a more contrasting set of colors for the crystals on top. If we go for kind of a more dark green and then add some lighter highlights above, it'll sort of give the illusion of like a mossy color scheme. And then we can go kind of more of a rusted orange for the underbelly and legs. And what if we went for a bit more of a vibrant color for the crystals, not magenta? Using this as our base, we can mess around with the color slider here and see if we get a better palette. That's a bit too bright. I think that'll work. I think this is going to look a little bit better once we get the shading on the different sections. We go with a darker purple for the claws. And maybe we can go for more blue in her mouth, sort of like a lizard. And we can make the teeth match the claws as well, consistent. And for the eye, we can go with sort of a seafoam color. Alright, we can also do our shape check while we're here. Looks like there's a little bit of a 1 or 2 pixel discrepancy. I wonder what's causing that. It's pretty minor. It doesn't break the border of the original. I think it'll be fine here. I think it just had to do with how I did the line work cleanup. But moving on, I think now that we've got our base color palette, we can start doing the highlights and shading, which should help bring out these different sections and give them a bit more depth. So I'll start with the base green. This is going to be the highlight layer of the main part of the color palette. And once I go through each major section, I will add in the shading before moving on to the next one. While I'm doing the shading here, which isn't going to require a whole lot of commentary, I guess I could talk a little bit about gaming news, and I talked about what I'm looking forward to playing, but I guess I can also talk about some other miscellaneous gaming news that happened to cross my radar. Apparently, I don't know if it was this weekend or earlier in the week, but apparently Blizzard had their annual BlizzCon event, which was all online this year due to COVID, obviously. But one of the things that I've heard people talking about that came out of that press event was the announcement for a remastered Diablo 2 game. And I haven't really been paying too much attention to what Blizzard's been working on. The last few projects they've released weren't really on my radar. and after the debacle that was the Diablo mobile announcement, whenever that was, I sort of just tuned out, haven't really been following too much. But the announcement of a D2 remake is relevant to my interests. And I'll have to keep an eye on what that looks like. I can't remember if I've talked about it on a video here, but when I was in school, Diablo 2 was a big part of my life for a while. I played quite a bit of that game back in the day with some friends of mine. Many hours that could have probably been spent finding ways to better society were instead spent grinding out epic loot and defeating the demonic hordes over and over. So I could definitely say I've got a lot of nostalgic thoughts for Diablo 2. I think for this remake that they're talking about now, while I am interested in playing it, I probably will wait till it comes out and see what people are saying. Apparently, people were pretty divided on, I think it's World of Warcraft remake or whatever that they came out with. Again, I've been following Blizzard in a long time, so their recent projects have been pretty far off my radar. But people are kind of cautiously optimistic about the D2 remake. Apparently it's being done by a team which really has a lot of respect and love for the original games. So I'm hoping that means they come out with a good product, but we'll have to see. Between Blizzard's inconsistent track record with recent titles, along with their questionable politics, some people I know have decided to stop supporting them altogether, which I understand. For me, not having much investment in what the company's been doing means I'm marginally interested. So while some people are really excited for the D2 remake, I am interested, but sort of waiting to see how it turns out. Because if they end up botching it and it's not good, I'm not going to bother investing any time in that. There's plenty of other things on my radar that I'd like to play. But it is interesting. Another game that's been on my radar that I haven't had a chance to try because I haven't turned on my PS4 in a while is the new Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear Strive, which has been in betas recently, kind of off and on. I think the beta is closed now. But the Guilty Gear franchise of fighting games is one of my favorites from a lore perspective, but I haven't actually played a Guilty Gear game proper in many years. I didn't play Xrd because at the time I didn't have a system that the game was released on. The next generation or last generation consoles were where it started. Had it been released on PC, then I would have gotten it right away, but the PC release of Xrd wasn't till later. And then they had Revelator, and I think it was Rev 2. I just sort of missed the boat on the last iteration of Guilty Gear. But I did follow a lot of fighting game content creators like Maximilian Dude, and I watched a lot of his coverage of the game. So from a spectator perspective, Guilty Gear Xrd and its subsequent expansions were real fun to watch, but I never really got into the game proper. And a fighting game like that is pretty tough to get into once it's been out for a while and the community's pretty good. So I just sort of chalked that one up to missing the boat and waiting for the next one to come out. For Strive, people have been playing the beta obviously, but I'm going to try and get in on the ground floor on that one when it comes out. Obviously I won't have the experience from the beta, but we'll see. Everything I've seen in the press leading up to the release has been looking good. The game presentation is great, and people are saying the gameplay and the fact that it includes rollback netcode is also a real positive. It'll just be a matter of how well it runs on PC, because I don't have a PS5. I believe it's on PS5 and Xbox? That would make sense. But I tend to play my fighting games more if they're on PC. So we'll see. I've also been keeping tabs on the development updates for Them's Fightin' Herds. There haven't been any major releases recently when we got to the later part of 2020. But I know the team has been hard at work on the next story chapter and the next DLC, the first DLC character, the GOAT. And depending on what they end up releasing in 21 for Them's Fightin' Herds, I'll definitely be doing videos on and talking about, because I do like that game quite a bit. It's probably my favorite indie fighter that's in development right now. And I do want to continue talking about the content and improvements to the game, and doing things like matches with players online and whatnot. So it's very likely there'll be more Them's Fightin' Herds content later this year, depending on what updates come out. I'll definitely be doing a playthrough of the new story chapter, which I believe is going to feature Reindeer Velvet. So that'll be a chance to learn a new character. I don't play that character pretty much at all. But we'll have to see when that particular update drops. Other than fighting game stuff, I think that's it for fighting games, at least that are on my radar. Wouldn't mind getting back to Soul Calibur 6 at some point. I started doing some basic tutorials on the DLC characters for Soul Calibur 6 and then stopped. And as a result, several more have been released since I did that. But we'll see. If I can convince some of my friends that are playing the game to get back on and maybe get more matches in, maybe I can record more content for Soul Calibur. We'll see. I am curious to see if they end up doing any more DLC characters. And I don't think they've announced plans yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they end up doing more. Alright, if we get back to our dinosaur here, what I'm doing now is going to the crystal spikes here on its back and just trying to add a little bit of shading and definition to the different sections. Just sort of give the illusion of depth. These sort of ridge-like plates as they go here, while also keeping an eye out for any stray pixels that I need to clean up. This part tends to be pretty straightforward. I think I've talked about it on previous sprite videos. The actual shading portion is my favorite part of the drawing process. My least favorite would be editing the line work and deleting stray pixels. The color assignment is pretty quick. That tends to not take too long. But shading is a chance to play around with things like lighting and highlights. So that's why that's my favorite part of the drawing process. To me, it's the most interesting. Now we're doing the claws on the hands and feet. And also the teeth. think the only part left is the inside of the mouth, and then the eye. After that, we'll go back and do our final checks on different sections of the body, different things to highlight, and then we'll be ready to do our final rule check on the overall piece. I have to make sure not to run out of room with these shades of green, since they're a little bit similar in tone. Alright, we'll go ahead and zoom out. Looking at our final results here, I think the shading definitely helped sort of balance out the colors, I think. Just add a little bit of detail here. And I think it's an interesting and somewhat unusual dinosaur type creature. Now we'll do our rule check. If we take our sample and overlay it over the top, and if I use the move command, you can sort of see here. Here's our original, our continent-like shape. And if we move it into place over the dinosaur itself, with the exception of a few stray pixels on the border, which is kind of a margin of error. In fact, that one on top I can add back in. There's no real reason why that needs to be deleted out. If we move the shape, put it in place and sort of superimpose it, we can see that the original shape isn't broken or distorted in any way that would make it unrecognizable. So I think we've passed that component of the challenge. The additional details that create our dinosaur creature here were added to the outer borders of the shape as per rule number 2. And then we didn't copy or apply any manipulation commands to the shape as part of the design. So by that we have fulfilled rule 3. So I think based on that we have passed the challenge of starting with a random shape and creating something unique from it. What I'd like to do real quick, since I don't think I've talked about this on a video before, is consolidate all this into one folder. And then I want to real quickly show how I come up with alternate palette colors for these sprites. It's very simple, but I don't think I've ever talked about it. So I'm going to do that here as a sort of close out to the video, and then we'll wrap up for this particular session. Looking at the clock, we're running in about an hour, so I think I will call it good for this recording, and this will most likely be a 2-part video. I can split this directly in half, and that should be a little more digestible. But real quick, when I create the alternate palettes for these sprites, what I'll do is I will take the original folder directory for the design, I'll merge it into one, or put it into one directory, then copy it, and then merge the copy into one single layer. So we hide our original, all of the layers from the original, which you can see here in the uncollapsed folder. For the alternate palette swap, it's not necessary to maintain all the original layer integrity. So I put them all into one to give me something easier to edit. And so this is everything flattened down into one layer. And then using our hue and saturation slider, I will mess around with the colors until I come up with a good alternate color that corresponds to an element if necessary. And if we compare that to the original, that's how we get our alternate palette swaps. It's very simple, and it's pretty interesting to go in there and experiment around with the different color options, and sometimes I'll tweak things like the color balance to give me something different. But I think that will do it for this particular sprite. What I'd like to do, I'll have to figure out when I want to do this again, but I think I want to sit down and do another random drawing for the sprites, just because I think when we did the two-dimensional designs I did 3, and I'd like to do more than 1 for the pixel sprites, but that will be for a future recording, and I could probably condense down a lot of the discussion since I won't need to go over things like the ground rules and things like the different parts of the sprite drawing process, but that'll be something to figure out for next time. But that being said, that will do it for this recording session. Once again, thanks for tuning in and watching me talk through my drawing process. I hope you guys found it interesting, but I will sign off for now, and I will see you guys in the next video.